Okay, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and today I thought it would be interesting to put like a little guide on how to optimize games for your computer or your PC. I know a lot of people are just entering the PC market. For me, even though I play on any system, you can see I have a Switch, I have a PlayStation, an Xbox, many old consoles. For me, PC is the best place to play games. Even though I know there have been some rough launches lately and so on, but I think in general PC is my favorite platform. However, I know that PC puts some people away, a lot of people away actually, because well, it's an open-end situation in the sense that, you know, games just come and you are the one that basically have to set them up in order for them to work correctly on your hardware. While on consoles, all you have to worry about is putting the game, in most cases just select performance or resolution or ray tracing, and that's it. You don't have to worry about anything else because the developer already set all the options for you, which can be good if you don't want to worry about, but it's one of those things that for me, you know, is the developer deciding. I don't have any power over what I want, what is my target, and what I want to do. And that's one of the things I love about PC, is that fact that I am the one that decides exactly how I want to play my games. So for a lot of you out there, I know you are the best when it comes to optimize game. You just know what options to do and all of that. But there is a lot of people that are, you know, newcomers, newbie, people that is just starting in the world of PC that may want to have some guide, something like to start while they develop the knowledge to understand better how to optimize their games. So I thought to give you 4 tips about how to optimize your PC games in a very easy way. So the first thing I want to say, and this is not one of the tips, is this is not about me telling you about resolutions or how what resolution you should be playing, because that should be determined by your own hardware. What I mean by that is that if you have a 1080p monitor, 1440p monitor, 4K monitor, normally what you want is to try to play a native resolution, unless you have a very, you know, if you have a 4K screen because you work on it but your PC is not very strong, then you will have to play a 1080p, but that's your decision to make. Also, the frame rate should be based on what your monitor is capable. There is no point on playing 120 FPS if your monitor is running at 60 Hz. Yes, there are some benefits if you're playing like some competitive game, if you let it run higher than your monitor is capable of showing, but for more AAA games, then you're really not getting much and you are sacrificing what could be more image quality. So that's something that you have to keep in mind, okay? So here's my first tip. The first tip I can give you is that you have to be realistic about your expectations on your own hardware. Because many people that starts with PC, they have a middle range to low end PC, and then they think that they can just put the game at 4K, ultra ray tracing active, and then they get disappointed when the game is running like a 20 FPS or 30 FPS because they were maybe expecting 100 FPS. So it's important that you understand that this is not the case unless you have like the, you know, the top of the line PC where most games are going to be running fantastic, but that's probably not the case for the majority of people watching this video. So be realistic about what your expectations are. You have to find that little balance between graphic quality and for performance, okay? So with this in mind, the first way, and this is my second tip, to understand what is your maximum or theoretical maximum behavior performance of your computer, at least the way I do it is I start by setting the game at the lowest preset at just 720p. Why is that? Because that is going to give me what is the maximum I can expect in terms of performance from that game on my computer. What that means is, if you don't know if a game is going to run on what performance or how it's going to run, and then maybe you want to play at 60 FPS, if you set the game at that low resolution and lowest configuration, and the game is running at 40 FPS, then it means that game is not going to get to 60 FPS no matter what. So your starting point will be 40 FPS. So you know that everything you do from this point on is going just to get your performance worse. So or not necessarily, but it's not going to be ever over those 40 FPS. And why I say not necessarily, we're going to see this in a couple of examples I'm going to be explaining after I give you the 4 tips. And what I'm trying to say here is that maybe, you know, your CPU is not fast enough for your GPU, and then, you know, you can improve resolution, improve quality, but you are not going to get more FPS because your CPU is limited to those 40 FPS. Or it could be the other way around. Your GPU is the one causing, you know, to not go over. So your CPU is very good, but your GPU is the one causing, you know, the bottleneck or the limitation. So once you understand how fast your computer can run a certain game, then you can go to the third tip, which is establish an objective. What does that mean? Well, you may want to play a higher frame rate. Like, I want to play at 120 FPS. That's my objective. I don't care about image quality. So at that point, when you tested previously what was your maximum theoretical, if you got like 140 FPS or 100 FPS, you already know that you can either go over those 120 or that you are never going to get to those 120. So you have to set your expectation. But if you see a game that is running at 100 FPS on those at that quality, then you can say, well, my expectation is to play at 60 FPS at a decent high graphical quality. And you know you can achieve that because your computer is 40 FPS over your target, which is 60 in this case. So there is a stuff you can play with in order to be able to achieve your goal, because you're trying to hit under what the computer can. Instead, if you want the highest frame rate possible, you know that the highest you're going to get is 100 in that particular case. Then maybe you can improve some settings and still keep those 100 because if your limitation is the CPU, then you know that you can improve some graphical quality, some resolution without having any problems in that case. And this brings me to the 4th tip, which is once you have tested, which is start with the preset of the games, which means that when you have tested the game initially at the lowest preset, now we test the highest preset and we see how much we lose, or if we lose anything at all. So for example, if I am playing low on a computer and I get 100 FPS, but when I set ultra I get 40 FPS, then I know that if I want to play at the highest graphical fidelity possible, I won't be able to achieve those 60 FPS. So at that point, I either have to say, well, I'm going to play at 30, I'm going to play at 40 because my monitor accepts it, or I am going to lower the quality in order for me to achieve those 60 FPS. So at that point, you can test medium. And if in medium you get like 70 FPS, then you can start tweaking from medium because you are above your target. You either leave that as a buffer in case in some scenes your game needs more, or you adjust it to get a little bit more of quality. But I know this may sound convoluted, so I'm going to show you some videos explaining what I'm trying to convey to you to make things easier. To give you a better example of what I'm saying, so the first game we are going to be trying with this method is Spider-Man Miles Morales, and the first thing I did was set the game at 720p low, and as you can see we get a maximum performance of around 160 FPS, and you can see over there that the GPU is not being completely taxed. However, probably because of CPU limitation, we can get over. So that's our maximum value of FPS we're going to get. So then the second thing I set is an objective of 60 FPS at 1080p with the maximum possible quality. Now what I did first was set the resolution to my objective, which is 1080p, but keeping the low setting just to see how many frames per second I can get. That allows me to understand if my objective of 60 FPS is going to be achievable at 1080p. And as we can see, yes we can, because we are going to be over that by 100 FPS. So yeah, that's a very realistic objective in this case, but we want now better image quality. So what I did now was set the game at 1080p but very high. So all I did was change the preset, and we are still way over those 60 FPS that we want to achieve. So that means there is still room for improvement in terms of visual quality. So as you can see so far, our expectation has been set realistic, and we are getting to the achieve our objective that we wanted in the first place, that is to play 1080p at the maximum quality. So because I can, now I activated ray tracing, and yes, we get a 1080p very high plus ray tracing active over 60 FPS. So far we can say, well, yeah, we achieved what we wanted. Of course, there is always going to be the occasional stutter or hitching here or there, especially because we never know some places that can be more demanding, but in general I think we have achieved our goal. However, this is not the end for this example, because now what we're going to do is activate VSync, because what we want is 60 FPS, right? So why not activate VSync to have a more smooth frame rate, but to also have the frames, in sync with our monitor. However, you can see that the frame time and frame rate are not exactly perfect. At least the line is a little bit, jittery. This is not bad, but it could be better. So to achieve that, I'm going to give you a final tip. In this case, is to limit the frame time by using Riva Turner. And with Riva Turner, you can set the frame to any limit. And as you can see now, the frame time and frame rate are much more smoother. So this is a better experience. If you don't know how to do that, there is lots of video, or maybe I will make one later. Now we are going to follow the same procedure, but now with a game that is, famous for being the best optimized game. And this case is The Last of Us Part 1. So I did the same, set the game at 720p low, and we are getting around a theoretical max of around 120 FPS. So by knowing this, then I can achieve some realistic goals. So my first goal, or my objective, is to get at 1440p 72 FPS. And why 72? Well, because my monitor is at 144, but I already know that I'm not going to get to that. So 72 is a half refresh rate that is going to work beautifully in sync. So I want 1440p, so I set the resolution to 1440p, and I can see I get over that. So we know this is not an unrealistic goal. However, now I put the game on ultra 1440p just to see how much the settings are going to affect the FPS, and we can see that setting the game at 1440p ultra is not going to be a realistic goal, and I know that I have to get somewhere in the middle. And that's because when I set the game to ultra, I go to around 40 to 45 FPS, which is a lot. It's far away from the 72 FPS that we want to achieve in our game. In my case in particular was 72 FPS, as I explained, because my monitor is 144 Hz, so I think using 72, which means every 2 refreshes I'm going to get 1 frame, is a realistic objective. However, that objective is not being achievable at ultra. That doesn't mean that we can get there. So the first thing that I tried when I was in ultra settings was to activate DLSS, because I wanted to see if I could keep this quality but activating some reconstruction technique. So I went to the options, I went to graphics, I went to the DLSS settings in this game, and I set it in quality mode, and the reason was just to see how much performance I was going to gain. However, while activating it, I realized that I didn't gain absolutely anything. So there is another limitation here, and this is not the way. So ultra is completely discarded from me trying to get to where I want to. So the second thing was to go to 1440p high preset, and at this case you can see we are very close to our goal, but we are not there. Of course, you can change your goal while you're testing and say, well, maybe I'm going to just accept those 60 FPS because we're over that, but not by much, and I will be afraid that there could be some scene that will cause my frame rate to tank a little bit. So if I want to be completely sure and keep on to my preset, the first thing I will do is now try again DLSS. And now when I activate DLSS, look at that, we get over 90 FPS. So we are way over our objective, and we are keeping a very high resolution and a very high quality. So we could say that 1440p high plus DLSS quality has been enough to achieve our goal of 72 FPS. However, once again, I'm going to give you I'm going to limit the frame rate with Riva Tuner and give you this scene
just so you can see how good it goes. So after testing all that, I limited to 72 FPS for the reasons I explained before, and now as you can see here with the 1440p high and DLSS quality on an NVIDIA RTX 3060, we have a frame rate and frame timeline that is perfect, and we get better smooth performance than just a 60. We are getting 12 more FPS, which may not look like much, but it's much better than just 60, and we are getting also a very high quality game. So we achieved the best of both worlds by testing where all limitations were. Of course, if you have like a VRR monitor, which mine is, you can just unlimit the frame and just let it, dance a little bit over 80, under 70. So in that case, you're going to get, still a very good experience. But in this case, I was using the 72 FPS as an example of what you can achieve when you try to set the right expectations for a game. And as you can see here, there is no point where the frame rate or frame time is really bad. There is maybe the occasional hitch to one frame due to stutterings or maybe VRAM situation, which is really not a big deal with this 8 gigs of VRAM. When you're using the high preset at 1440p, you're way over the needs for that the game has. So for example, here you have seen so far that the game has run very smooth. Now there is a small transition here, and you are going to see that we lose like one frame just during the transition, and that's it. So it's imperceptible. Then there is a bigger hitch when this truck explodes, but that could be done because of shader compile or anything else. But you see it goes and then it comes back a perfect 72 FPS again. So as I said, if you set right expectations and you start playing with the setting, you can achieve very good quality on PC on your own terms. So I'm going to leave you with the rest of this very short gameplay, and then I'm going to give you my conclusions.
Wow, I have no idea if this video is going to be long or not, because I am editing and recording this in separate moments, so I'm not quite sure how it ended. I hope it's not very long, because the whole idea here is to give you quick tips so you can at least catch them, and then over time you're going to learn more and more what each settings does and so on, and you're going to be a pro optimizing your games. So as you can see with the two examples I used, the Spider-Man Miles Morales and The Last of Us, we were achieving completely different targets. We used the same method to try to achieve those targets. And what's interesting is that even though we were trying to achieve different things, using this, we could get to the point where we achieve exactly what we wanted. And that's sort of the idea of this, for you to be able to use these tips in order to get the performance that you want and the graphical fidelity from the game. This is obviously not an in-depth performance guide, but it's more like a startup, a point where you can, start having the experience you want, but also start experimenting. So I hope this helps some people out there to try to find out the best way to play their games on PC. Thank you very much, and see you on the next video.